So I used a Sharpie marker to mark pretty much all four corners of where the butterfly is, just to get an idea of where this thing is making contact with the housing. And you could see the witness marks pretty much top right and lower left. These are the only two places where the butterfly is making contact. So those are basically the rough spots that's making the throttle body stick or just kind of feel rough. So I don't want to take out the butterfly and physically sand it down, because I've seen people on YouTube do that, and that's a guaranteed way to just brick your throttle body, and it's as good as a paperweight at that point. But I figure we can try valve lapping compound. It's not that aggressive and it's controlled, and you could just take it a little bit at a time. So I just finished applying some valve lapping compound right there and in this lower left corner down there, and you guys can hear it doing its magic. So I'm just going to keep working it back and forth and hopefully get some improvements out of this thing. Now, in the event that I turn this thing into a paperweight, it's not that big of a deal because I have a 74mm throttle body, which, guys, that thing just works super smooth. It doesn't matter how hard you slam it closed. I'll show you right now. You could slam it closed and it still opens up very smooth. But let's go ahead and finish what we're doing here. All right, so I've only been at this for like 2 or 3 minutes, and if we look at the valve lapping compound, right where it's making contact, you can see it has just a tint of brown to it. That is the, I don't know what this is, if it's copper or bronze, but that is that material essentially shaved down and it's mixing into the valve lapping compound. All right, so I'm all done. I cleaned it out with brake parts cleaner as best as I can. And guys, do not forget to get the valve lapping compound off of the actual butterfly itself in this little like crevice, because it's easy to clean the bore, the aluminum housing, but if you forget the valve lapping compound right here inside of this crack, that can cause damage in the long run. Anyway, guys, this feels way smoother. Just actuating it like this, you could already tell there's a big difference. But before, when you slammed it shut like that, in order to open it, you would need 2 hands. You would need something to turn this wheel while you have your other hand holding the actual body. That's how stuck it would be. And now look at this. No problems at all. Slam. Even harder. Look at that. It feels like a completely different part, guys. That feels crazy smooth. I mentioned the 74mm throttle body, and I got it right there sitting on that box. You can see I was already planning on installing it because I even went ahead and put on the adapter that converts the 90mm down to 74mm. But honestly, I know the 74mm, oh, by the way, this 74mm from Skunk 2, this thing's like super smooth right out the box, guys. Now it's a little bit more difficult with one hand because of the spring tension, but I noticed that when I got this thing feels crazy smooth. Like, we can let it slam shut, right? And when you go to open it, smooth, no issues at all. So I have no doubt that the 74mm would work perfectly and make the car idle nicely. And who knows, at the end of the day, I may end up going to that one. But the fact that the K-Tune one feels so smooth now after using the valve lapping compound, I'm really anxious to test it out now to see if it made an improvement. Now, if we go ahead and put the 90mm back on here and it's still idling funny, like say it's idling at 1500 or 2000 RPM, I'm done with that, okay? So I got the spring put back on it. I moved it up 1 notch. And what I'm noticing now, it's kind of like a new problem, is that if you let it slam shut with the tension of the spring, it's actually harder to open up now. Yeah, it's kind of like stuck right there. Jesus. Which makes sense, because if you think about it, this bore, as you grind down the high spots, well, it makes other areas start to make more contact. You get what I'm saying? But what I'm hoping, I can't even open it. Oh, I need 2 hands. That's crazy. What I'm hoping is that the throttle plate never has to sit in this position, because the idle adjustment screw as long as you set the idle so that it never has to like fully lock the throttle plate like that, that means it would never get in that position where it has to bind up. Anyway, we're gonna have to test it out, see if it actually works. If it doesn't work, like I said, we're just gonna switch over to the 74 mil. I think all of this is at least worth a shot. All right, so I got everything installed, everything's plugged in except for this one clamp for the intake. Everything else is in place. I don't have the idle adjustment screw in place just yet, so I'm just leaving it how it is. Let's get in the car and first hit the gas pedal and get first impressions of what it feels like. It feels nice and smooth. Let's try doing like a snap throttle. We'll push it down and then let it snap back. Let's see if it's stuck. Oh, I felt it a little bit. Let's see, I'm gonna do it again. Now let's see if you guys can hear. It was just a hair. Okay. There it goes. You guys heard that little clunk? That's the, you know, the throttle cable pulling on the plate to open it because it gets stuck. Remember guys, the car drove great. We're just looking for improved idle at this point. Well, let me look what the TPS is reading because I did take it off. It may have to be recalibrated, but if it says near 0, we should be good to at least start it up. That looks pretty good. See, it says 0%. So let's try the starter. Oh my god, look at the idle. I've never seen this thing idle that low. Let's open the throttle. Oh, it stalled out the second. So I did feel like it was sticking a little bit, and the second it went past that little sticking point, that's when the engine stalled. Let's try it again. Yeah, it does not like that. I think I could see why. So I'm pushing the accelerator pedal very slowly, and I'm noticing, if you look at the throttle percentage, like right now I'm already moving the accelerator pedal. Moving, and right there the TPS starts to recognize. Remember how I said I left the idle adjustment screw off of the throttle body, and this thing's idling like super low now, like 800 RPM. I would like for it to idle around 1,000. I'm okay with that, but before it was idling at like 1,700, 2,000. That's crazy. So what I want to do is we'll start her up. We're gonna let it idle at around 800 RPM. We're gonna put the idle adjustment screw on it and raise it until we get to 1,000 RPM, and at that point the throttle plate should no longer be getting stuck because it's not going that far back, if that makes any sense. I know it sounds a little crazy, but let's go ahead and try it. We're gonna let the engine run, and we'll use it to increase the idle while it's running. Let me see what the RPMs are right now. Good, same thing, about 800. Now I'm gonna have to keep going back and forth because I have no way of looking at the RPM while I'm out here. That's spot on, guys. Okay, at this point, if it still stalls, that's because we got to calibrate the TPS. But let's see what happens when I try to accelerate. Oh my god, super smooth. obviously the sticking is gone because the idle adjustment screw has gotten the throttle plate past, or it stops it right before the sticking point, if that makes any sense. And now the pedal feels really smooth. And look how it comes right back down to 1,000. I've never been able to like feather the throttle this easy. Let's go ahead and raise the RPM slowly. Let off of it. Guys, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Now I'm still gonna recalibrate the TPS, but that's amazing. This is exactly what I was hoping for. So at the end of the day, it seems like, well, I'm gonna take it out for a test drive right now, but it seems like the valve lapping compound on the throttle body did fix the issue. The pedal feels super smooth. We'll let it come back to idle and boom. 1,000. Let's go ahead and go again. Oh, that's amazing. Alright, so let me go ahead and tighten the locking nut on the idle adjustment screw to make sure that doesn't move, because we had that problem once before a long time ago where I didn't know it wasn't tight and it was slowly walking its way down and it held the RPM at like 7,000. The trick now is to tighten the nut on it without actually moving the adjustment screw itself. But guys, right now it seems to be working perfectly, and if the throttle body could stay working like that, I'll be super happy with it and I'll leave it on there. All right, so I just finished tightening the screw. Everything's buttoned up and good to go, or I should say tighten down the nut so it shouldn't move out of adjustment. I just started it up and you can see we're idling at 1,000 RPM. Let's try to raise the RPM again. Nice and smooth. Perfect. So nice to have that issue fixed. I think we can move on to something else now. Actually, before we go out for our test drive, don't let this distract you from the fact that Hector's going to be running 3 Honda Civics with spoon in. Oh wait, I'm going off track here. Anyway, we have to do the TPS relearn. So hopefully I don't screw this up. You can see I'm already in the section right here. I think I'm supposed to hit reset. And then let's try calibrate, see what happens. Fully press the accelerator pedal down. Alright, where's TPS at? Oh, right there, you guys can see 100%. Okay, so it says hold the pedal and click calibrate, so let's do that. Okay, TPS calibration complete, click recalibrate. Let's try it again. So you can see TPS says 0. Let's go ahead and hit the accelerator pedal, and with the pedal all the way to the floor it should reach 100%. That looks good. Oh, I can tell it's already super smooth to get the car moving. Just got back from the test drive, and yeah, it's actually way easier to feather the throttle to get it going a lot easier. You get what I'm saying? As opposed to idling at 2,000 RPM. Yeah, way more manageable. Maybe I'll install the 74 mil and take it out for a drive one day when I'm bored and got nothing to do. But as of right now, there's no reason to mess with the 90 mil. It's working. Alright, so I want to start addressing the little issues that I know are there or I've discovered. So one thing is I put the beauty cover back on the valve cover for the ignition coils, but the standoffs are a little bit too tall, so if you were to put a bolt in them, they're not clamping down on anything. So as you can see, I put like a little O-ring inside of there and then a plastic washer. I know it looks goofy, but it's actually holding down. The front ones are fine, you know, it's got the regular skunk tube ones, but the back ones are the ones that we have the issue. And this is actually a really easy fix. All you have to do is take off the standoffs and file them down or grind them down until they sit lower so the bolt can actually clamp without requiring any of this nonsense underneath it. Anyways, that's not a big issue. I'll do that later on. One thing I have noticed is whenever I park the CRX after a drive, oil stains, little drips. I think there's more than one, but I'm noticing one right back here, and it tends to leak right onto the CV shaft. So the rubber boot for the axle, I could see it getting oil dripped on it, which is not good for that rubber boot. Anyway, so I came inside of here with a mirror. You see that little drip right on the bottom of the oil filter? I know the camera's not focused. Oh, there it goes. And if we look further back towards the cooler, you could see the oil right there. So obviously if you look on top of the filter, bone dry, right? Nothing. It's just underneath the filter. So is this filter a little loose? Let's go ahead and try it. Nope, definitely not loose. That thing is tight. You know what's back there? You got it's basically a sandwich. You got the block, you got the oil cooler that has its own O-ring, and then obviously the filter itself has a O-ring. So I think before I jump to any conclusions, there's going to be something that I have to take a closer look at once I get the car up on ramps. It's not a big deal, little drips like that, but honestly I would prefer that it doesn't leak at all, seeing that engine is essentially brand new. Everything inside of it's brand new. Every single gasket is brand new. There's no reason why any of this stuff should be leaking. So yeah, anyways, there's that I need to deal with. Another thing, that every time I take this out for a test drive, you know, this thing has rough, harsh suspension on it, so the car's like constantly bouncing around. And one thing that's always weighing on my mind that I'm expecting to like randomly just fall off the car while I'm driving is the battery. When I first made this battery tray, I welded on the bracket that goes back here in the corner. Let's see if you guys can see it. Yeah, kinda back there. You see it? So that thing, when I initially welded on that bracket, I gave it like a very small, it's not tack, it's a little bit more than a tack, but it's a very small amount that I welded it in, because I wasn't sure if the battery was going to be able to go in and out of here. So that's why I purposefully only gave it a small weld. In case it wasn't going to work, I could easily cut the weld and readjust it, but it turns out it fits. The way it is right now, even though it looks very tight, I could get this battery in and out of here. So that means I have to go back in there and fully weld up that bracket. On this side, I don't have to worry about that because the bracket's actually just bolted on to the body right there with these two bolts. Not an issue at all. But that tiny bracket on the back, seeing that batteries weigh a lot and that it's not fully welded, and the fact that this car has pretty rough suspension, so as you're going down the road, all the vibrations and the bump, I'm waiting for that tiny little weld to just crack and the battery just fall off while I'm driving. So let's go ahead and fix that right now. The battery cable off. Look at that negative ground, guys. That's a thick board. Anyway, before I pull out the battery, I just remembered I don't even have a battery tie down for this thing. Thankfully the battery doesn't bounce around because I specifically made this tray for this battery and it fits in there nice and snug. There's like zero play, but it doesn't mean I don't want a battery tie down. Now when I bought this Hush Performance battery kit, it came with this bracket that would normally sit like that, right? And of course it no longer fits because I had to chop up his bracket, because his bracket was designed to hold a much smaller battery, and I wanted a full-size battery on this car, because those tiny little batteries that are constantly dying, or you always have to leave them charging, yeah, I'm not for that. So anyway, I made my own custom battery tray utilizing his as a starting point, but now we need a way to use this battery tie down. You can see I've been cutting chunks off of it and using it for other random brackets and stuff. So I need to come up with something clever. Initially I wanted to design this in a way that I could easily remove this so I could get the battery out of here. But if you think about it, the bumper is going to be covering all of this. There is no way to change this battery without removing the bumper. Looking at it from that perspective, it doesn't really matter how I designed this bracket. Like if the bolts are on this side or over here, they're hard to get to with the bumper in place. It doesn't matter because the bumper needs to come off to change this battery, so I could design the bracket however I want. Alright, that's what it was. So basically you got to tilt it back so that the bottom lip of the battery comes out of the tray, and then pull it out like this. As you can see, it does clear, it does come out, and that's as close as I could get it to the body of the car and still fit, still be serviceable. So with the battery out, we could have a better look at this. So you can see this side bolts into like the factory threaded hose that were already there, and on the left side you can see it's bolted into the bracket as well, but that bracket is welded to the body of the car. I put a weld right there and another small one right there. So you can see how the weight of the battery constantly bouncing as this car goes down the road and hits bumps. Those two little welds right there have always been weighing on my mind that they might crack. So let's get this out of here and completely weld up that bracket now. So here's where I'm at so far. I had to do a lot of stuff off camera just to be able to get some work done. But basically I have a piece of angle iron down there. You guys just saw me weld the two nuts to it. And before I did that, I drilled two holes in it using the drill press just to make sure I get everything 100% aligned. And you can see that 10 mil bolt is already in there, and that one's gonna go ahead and go inside of there, and it's just a standard 10 by, I think it's a 1.25, don't quote me on that, but basically the type of little 10 mils that you see all over Hondas. So that angle iron with the two nuts welded on it is going to get welded to the actual battery box itself, and of course this whole piece is going to be separate. I got it dead center. Now it is going to go ahead and get welded together right here. You see where I'm just using a magnet to hold all this stuff together for the moment. But this little area right here is not enough to hold these two pieces of metal together. I don't like that, it won't be strong enough. So I'm gonna have to make some like bracket at an angle to get a good solid weld and make it a lot stronger. But that's gonna be the final product. I think it looks super clean. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to remove the original Hush Performance logo. I know I butchered his design, but I had to make it work for my application and make it my own. I'll go ahead and leave his design right there. So I'm just about done with the battery tie down. As you can see, it came out really nice. It's super clean. You can see I just took it out the sandblaster. I was sandblasting the areas where I welded and ground, so that's why it looks like that. Now I know I said I was going to put a triangle piece right here to weld and make it stronger, but after welding these two sides together, guys, I tested it and this thing feels plenty strong, especially given what its job is. The job of this bracket is just to stop the battery from bouncing up or coming up by itself. So this thing is more than strong. If I were to weld metal right here on the side, it would just be overkill. I even went ahead and rounded off these edges right here so that nothing feels sharp to the touch. So again, I have to put this bracket as well as the battery tray back into the sandblaster to get some of this nasty grimy stuff off of here from the welder, and then we'll give it a fresh coat of paint. Ideally I would like to have this thing powder coated in the future, but paint is gonna have to do for now. And here's a pro tip: if you're painting something, grab a heat gun and heat it up. I mean, you don't want to get it like scorching hot, you just want to get it a pretty good warm temperature so that the paint that you put on it actually starts to dry really fast. Now this isn't going to speed up the drying time. I still like to let these type of things sit for a full 24 hours to cure, but what it does speed up is the time between layers of paint. So if I put my self-etching primer down first, it minimizes the amount of time I have to wait between putting on my next coats, if that makes sense. Alright, so this is all done. It's painted and I'm just gonna let it sit here and cure till tomorrow. So while that's curing, we could go ahead and fully weld on the bracket I was showing you guys. This one right here, you can see I got a weld on top and a little tack on the bottom, and I want to see if I could completely weld it all the way down, and the same thing on the back side. And in order to do that, I think it's best to remove the wheel and try to peel this fender liner back. Okay, so I got the wheel off, and looking inside of here, everything looks really good. I really like this finish that I put on the spindles here when I was rebuilding them. It looks like a powder coat finish, but it's not. It's actually this POR 15. And guys, this stuff, if you apply it correctly and follow all the steps, this thing is like rock solid. This thing is harder to remove than powder coat. That's how durable it is. And you can see it has that nice shine just like a powder coat would. So honestly, and look, I even did it here on the forks. See how nice that turned out. So really happy with it. Everything looks good inside of here. Again, everything is brand new. I know the tie rods are dirty, but they are also brand new. And we could get a closer look at our oil leak. You see this? Still have not figured out where it's coming from yet. To be fair, some of this oil leak is from when I removed the VTC over here and the VTEC spool valve. You know, a bunch of oil came pouring out and I never bothered to clean that up. So I'm sure some of that is from that mess. But I'm gonna have to clean this up someday so we can actually identify where the leak is coming from. Because in my opinion, this is unacceptable. Every gasket is brand new, everything's brand new. There's no reason why this thing should be leaking. And from right here, we could get a better idea of what I was pointing out before with the mirror. You could see the bottom of the oil filter has like little drips coming off of it. And you see the oil cooler that the oil filter is screwed into. You can see drips of oil coming off of that. Alright, so the fender liner out of the way. You can see the bracket was never welded on the backside. I only welded it right there on top and a little tack on the bottom. This is why I was so concerned with this thing. I don't know if I need to do a complete bead all the way down because there's limited access right here. I might just do maybe like a 1-inch bead right there in the center, and then try to finish this weld on this side going all the way down. Oh, and shout out to CRC, because of course this is all bare metal and I sprayed it with CRC, and look how perfect everything looks. You can see it has that gold tint. You can actually see the CRC running down right here. So again, this is all bare steel and no rust has developed on it, even though I did this months ago. So I just finished measuring the thickness of that bracket and it comes out to 1/8. Alright, so we're going to be on the right side of the chart because we're using 240 volt, not 120. As far as wire, right here on the spool it says 0.023, and the closest one is 0.024, so that's the one we're going to go with. So we go 0.024, go all the way across into the 240 section, and we measured the steel at 1/8, so we are exactly right here. That appears to be 7 and 90, so that's where we have to put our settings. Let's go ahead and close this door. 7, that one's already set, and they want 90 all the way on this side. So that's how it's gonna go. And now that it's all set, we could cover this back up. I need to give this cover a cleaning, but it's doing its job. So I sprayed this down with brake parts cleaner and hit it with the wire brush to get it as clean as possible. There's some welds right here. You can see real big beads. You can tell it's a really cold weld. I'm not too happy about that. But again, I was working with limited space, a lot less than what I have here at the time. Anyway, one important thing, I don't know if it's necessary, but it's something I like to do. Go inside and unplug any computers, your ECU, anything. So I already unplugged my Haltech. I have had an experience where I did fry a ECU on a car when I was welding one time. So I know everyone claim, oh no, it never happens. I've welded on cars thousands of times for the past 98 years. I understand that, okay? And I know muffler shops weld on cars, on exhaust systems 24/7 without unplugging anything. I understand all of that. I'm just telling you the one bad experience I had. I was welding an exhaust on an Impala and I fried the ECU on the car. So chances of something like that happening, yeah, are very slim, but I can speak from experience that it can happen because it's happened to me. All right, so I'm all done. It's not pretty, but I know it's gonna hold for sure. I learned real fast that the welder wants to burn right through the steel on the car. This steel is slightly thinner than what this bracket is. So if you were to stay in it to get full penetration, like just try to weld straight up without stopping, you would burn right through this steel. So basically I have to just keep stacking the welds on top of each other as I go, and that's why it kind of looks like crap. I'm not happy about it, but it was the only way it was going to get done without burning through the steel on the car. And on the back side, you can see I got about an inch weld right there in the center, just like I talked about. Not pretty, but I feel a lot better about this, that it's gonna hold up and that bracket isn't just gonna tear right off of the frame. Let's go ahead and spray with this. This is what I use to protect from rust. This stuff is not gonna wash off or come off unless you actively try to remove it. Just give it a nice douching front and back. We'll clean off and wipe off the excess, and that should not take long to dry since the metal is still kind of hot from welding. It's not scorching hot. Of course you don't see it like burning off. It's just warm enough to start to cure the CRC pretty fast. So it's the next day, and you can see we have wrapped up the battery tie down. Everything looks great, everything fits great, so I'm really happy with how that turned out. Let's see, there's more stuff I got to do up front, but let's move on the inside. Something simple I guess we could do before we wrap up this video. And don't worry guys, there's plenty more little things that we have to do on the CRX. This is just going to be the last thing for this video since it might be getting long. But some of you may have noticed while test driving the car that the dash is bouncing around like crazy. And it's not the bracket I made. The bracket, as you can see, it's like triangulated, okay? So it's very strong. The problem is the factory brackets can only take so much weight, especially something hanging this far out. So this thing's constantly bouncing around, and I don't want the original brackets to start to fatigue and crack. So what I'm going to do is use this factory mount right here for the center console, and we'll make a bracket coming off of here going up to here and weld it right there, and just give us that extra support so this thing is no longer bouncing around. And don't worry guys, this car is going to get the original dash put back in it. This is just for the time being. I know it's going to be a while before I could get that dash installed, so for the time being I don't want this to cause any damage, or God forbid this thing falls and my expensive dash gets damaged. So that's why we're going to be making an extra bracket for it. Alright, so the bracket that we're going to make to hold up the digital dash does not have to be pretty. It's just going to be one of those quick and dirty type of things, because of course it is temporary. So there's no point in spending all kinds of time coming up with an elaborate bracket. So you can see I have this like square tubing here. I don't know, it's a tube, I don't know, call it whatever you want. But I found this is a little bit too long. Of course, we're gonna have to cut it down. And then this bracket has been sitting on my toolbox, guys, for months, probably even a year or two. And I didn't want to throw it out because I knew I would have a use for it one day. Well, I could chop off this section right here that has the hole drilled through it, and we could utilize that to mount onto the bracket that's already sitting where the center console is, and weld that in like that. And of course, cut the length of it to the right length, and we'll weld it up top. All right, so here's the game plan. There goes that little bracket that I told you I was gonna cut. So I put a bolt in it, and here goes the rod that I trimmed to length. So it's gonna get welded on there, and then this end is gonna come up top and get welded right there. So that's the game plan. Okay, so the way you guys saw me tack on the brackets together, it's not ideal. You just kind of eyeballing things. Ideally, you want it inside the car when you're tacking everything together to make sure it's going to line up. But because of all the carpeting inside of here, I don't want to take that chance of something catching on fire. So I just put a tack there, and I came over here, fitted, and kind of tweaked everything to make it work. And as you can see, the bolt is in right there, and we got the 2 bolts in over there. So of course it's just tacks, but rock solid. So I'm gonna take it off of the car, and I'm gonna put a few more welds just to make it a little bit stronger, but that's pretty much it. So let me go ahead and wrap this up. And there we have it. It's not pretty, but it's functional. And the dash, well, I'm not gonna beat on it, but nice and solid. That's not going anywhere. Anyway guys, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and like always, thanks for watching.